Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I've got a review on the much talked about Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette. This caused a lot of controversy because there was a lot of very different reviews. Some people really loved this and some people really hated this palette. There was kind of no in between. I went into this with a super open mind. I don't really care if other people think something is great or something's bad. At the end of the day, if I love it, like I love it. And I'm never going to just talk something up or talk something down just to make an entertaining video. My reviews are just really whatever pops into my head at that moment. You know, I'm really just telling it like it is. I'm not trying to, you know, be super controversial or being like hyping up a product that is actually not great. I just wanted to really try this palette for myself and see if it lived up to other palettes that Anastasia Beverly Hills has released, because I actually own quite a few of her palettes. I have the Ambresi palette, I have the Modern Renaissance palette, I have a lot of her single eyeshadows. These are all single shadows here. So I thought I would do two different eye looks, really just testing it out for you guys on camera. And I really tried to use as many colors in this palette as possible. I think there's only one color that I actually didn't use. So this is what the palette looks like from the front. It has that sort of velvety touch cover, same as the Modern Renaissance. It has like that, just a velvety feel. These palettes can get dirty quite fast just because it's like velvety, so they're a little bit hard to clean. And this palette retails for $42. You can get it on Anastasia Beverly Hills site or on Sephora. Now, I'm not going to actually do swatches in here just because for length of time, you know, I don't want this video to get too long. There's been a ton of videos that have done swatches. And also the main reason being that I don't think swatches really give you a good representation of how a palette performs, because you can make a swatch look like absolute crap, or you can make the same eyeshadow look absolutely amazing. I just prefer to just show you guys the colors as I'm using them. Comes with like a dual-sided brush. I don't use the brush in the tutorial just because I prefer to use my own brushes. I never really use the brushes that come with palettes. And then there are 14 eyeshadows, and what's kind of notable about this palette is that there's a lot of green tones in here. Like this one, and this one is definitely all fall in the green family. And there's also a lot of yellows, like this shade, this one, and this one. These are all kind of yellow based. These ones are more like mustards, and then this is like a duochrome yellowy, and this is like a yellowy ochre. Green and yellow heavy palette, which is kind of a little bit weird to me. I don't know. Let's actually try these products out and see how they perform. Okay guys, so I've done my base, I've done my brows, and I'm ready to go. Now all I've done on my eyes is I just used some concealer and powder just as a very simple eyeshadow base. And now usually the first thing that I do when I start off a look is I do kind of the highlighter under my brow and just work it down, especially if I know that I'm gonna be working with sort of more intense, darker colors like this. And what I noticed right away in this palette is that there's really no shade in here that would work as a highlight shade. There's this shade up here, which is called Cube, but this is not really a highlighter. This is more like a reflective whitey pink, like it's kind of a duochrome color. And then this one, Dawn, is way too dark for me. Like this is more like a transition color for me. It's a very yellow toned. First things, I'm gonna have to pull another palette just because there isn't a shade in here that would work for me for that purpose. But whatever, I mean, that's really why I always pull the VSART palette, because often, you know, there's just not the correct shade for me, so I just go to my go-to palette. So that's already kind of like annoying from that palette that there's no highlighting shade in there that would work. So if I was traveling with that palette, I would either have to take the VSART palette with me or another like single eyeshadow, something like this. So first I'm gonna go in with Dawn over here, which is the shade here. Whoa. Okay, yeah, there is fallout. There's quite a bit of fallout. I mean, I'm touching very lightly, and it's kind of now fallen down into Cube and Roxy. Like it's kind of gathering right there. Let's see, because honestly, if I was doing makeup myself, I wouldn't hold the palette like this anyway. I would have it here down in front of me. You just have to like really touch very lightly. It does seem very pigmented, like I'm using very, very little product. And honestly, if I have the palette down flat in front of me, the kick up isn't so bad. As a consumer, like I'm trying to test these products, like if I was just a regular consumer, then I wouldn't be holding up the palette like that into the camera. I mean, yeah, there is quite a bit of kickback on this. The Modern Renaissance does have a lot of kickback as well. Then I'm gonna go in with Roxy over here, grab it with the palette holding it flat, and just like barely barely touching, kind of dusting off because it does pick up a lot of product onto the brush. So I'm gonna just dust that off. Let's kind of increase the color with Roxy. I mean, so far so good. I mean, I get that there's a lot of kickback on this because the thing is, when you're just picking up a tiny amount, it's kind of hard to spread it all over the brush. So what I'm actually doing is just getting some of the pigment from here, like getting some of the eyeshadow, and then I'm using like the mirror area to kind of swirl it onto my brush. I want it kind of all over the brush, and if I just keep swirling, it's going to pick up way too much product. So that's kind of how I'm using it. Let's see, I'm gonna pick up the MAC 217 and I'm gonna go in with All Star, which is the sort of burgundy reddish. It's the most red tone shade in the palette. Kind of placing this on that very outer corner. Okay, this one is a little bit patchy. I basically place the color and then I blend it out with the blending brush. So let's see what happens. Okay, now I'm starting to see what people were saying, because what's now happened is that where I applied it, it's kind of just like brushed it away. Didn't really stick. Like, it looked really nicely pigmented when I applied it, but it hasn't really like stayed. So let me see if I can just do this again. Blending it out with like a really soft brush. Now I'm not pressing hard, I'm pressing really lightly. I really don't know if you guys can see this, but it has kind of just like blended the color away. So it's like you can apply it and apply it and apply it, and then when you blend it, it kind of just like blends away. Like, this is looking a little bit patchy now. Like, it looks nice from far away, but when you look at it close, it is very patchy, like right there. There's like, here there's color, like here where the brush is, there's color missing, and then down here, there is color. It's kind of leaving like a kind of an uneven blend. Let's do a little bit of New Wave on the lid, a mustard yellow shade. Oh my god, this one is, what? This one is very pigmented, but it's super, super dusty. Kind of just like floofed everywhere. Okay, so I'm gonna go back in with a little bit of All Star here because it kind of just like blended away again. So let me just kick that up a notch. I'm gonna go back in with Dawn, that first kind of color, and just to try and blend this out a bit in the crease because it's looking a little bit kind of unblended. Is it just my imagination, but like as I'm blending Dawn over All Star, which is that sort of burgundy color, I feel like it's turning a different color. I feel like here it looks almost a little bit bluish, kind of like okay, that definitely just changed color. This is now like a weird gray color instead of that red that it was. And I mean, the color I'm putting on top, Dawn, is kind of a yellowy shade. If anything, it should turn more orangey. It shouldn't be turning like gray. To me, this does not feel like Anastasia Beverly Hills quality. You guys, I didn't know that so soon I would already like be turning against this palette. For this eye, I want to use some of these like teal, darker colors, like the green tones in here. So I'm going to be using Mercury first as a crease color. Again, a lot of kickback here. And I'm just using the MAC 224, which is like a really soft blending brush. What is going on here? What am I doing wrong? Am I sucking at makeup, or is this palette just not working for me? Okay, let's try a different brush because that applied just so streaky. It's so streaky somehow, but let's see. Okay, so I'm taking a clean brush and I'm gonna go in with Axis, which is the like really deep, dark teal color. This is really pigmented. There's quite a bit of fallout here, even though I did like tap off the brush. Look at all this fallout right here. Like, do you see that? It's just falling out. I'm just honestly taking the littlest amount and I'm tapping off the excess. Like, I'm not even grabbing a lot of product here. There's just a lot of fallout with these shadows. Blend out the crease a little bit because it's just where those two colors meet. Oh my God. Then I'm gonna go in with Destiny, which is that kind of mid-tone army green shade. Put that in the middle where those two colors like combine. Oh man. This is just a horrible mess. So what happened is because they're so dusty, that color now just like dropped all over the lid area where actually is supposed to be Axis, the darker shade. So now I have to like go back and put Axis back on the lid. Hang on, let's try it with a different brush, like a little thinner brush. Go back into the crease with that. Okay, that's a little bit better. It's not dropping as much. This is looking so muddy. Like, I don't have anything to blend this out with in this palette. Like, am I supposed to use Dawn, which is like a really warm color? Okay, I'm just gonna go in with a little bit with Dawn because I need to blend out this mess up here. Oh my God, these are so dusty. You guys, I am not impressed. I went into this with like a super open mind. I honestly felt like people were just being maybe a little bit dramatic. They're like, oh, this is, you know, so dusty and stuff. I honestly thought people were just being a little bit dramatic, but now that I'm actually using it, I can totally see their point. And the fact that I've owned so many Anastasia palettes, this time I'm going back with the Vizart palette just to kind of blend this out because honestly, this is just looking really bad. So I'm very familiar with the quality of their other shadows, which honestly, they're some of my favorite eyeshadows. Super surprised at the quality of this palette so far because none of the other eyeshadow palettes that I own from them or the singles behave in this way. Something is obviously different, you know? Like it's not the same. Look at all this fallout down here. Do you see this? Like here there wasn't that much fallout with the red tones, but especially with these like dark tones, I have fallout all along here. So I've already like done my concealer and stuff. So this is gonna be kind of like a pain to clean up now. This is a ton of fallout, especially for the fact that I was so careful with them and really kind of dusted off the excess. Okay, I just have like a green under eye now, great. So let's do a little bit of fudge on the lower line, which I actually like those kind of shades. They can be very flattering. Okay, this one's applying really nicely. Really, really pigmented. I'm going to grab a little bit of New Wave, which is that mustard shade. I'm just gonna put that on the inner area. Rowdy, which is in that palette, which is I think the darkest shade in there. So on the inner corner, I actually want to use Cube, which is here. Now, because I was using this shade and this shade right beside it for the other eye, this now has like a ton of fallout from those two colors all over it. Okay, that's like a lot more pink than I thought it would be. It's kind of like this iridescent pink. Maybe I'll pop a little bit of this like under the brow here and see. So I'm going back over to this side of the eye and I'm going to use Edge, which is another color that I haven't used. This is like a really kind of really bright mustardy. It's kind of weird how in this palette there's like so many like yellowy shades, but again, it's just like really dusty. It's just weird. And I am still not satisfied with this blend up here. I think it just looks really bad. So I'm gonna go back in with All Star and try and see if I can like smooth this. What? Like, look at this. The more I blend, the more the color is just coming off. Whatever I do, there is now a hole there, basically, where the color just refuses to stick. Like right there, there's like a bare patch now. I can see actually my skin showing through. For this price, you should not have to work this bloody hard to make these eyeshadows work. I don't know, let's do Electric, which is kind of like this weird greenish, I don't know, it's hard to describe it. It's like this kind of chunky, greenish, glittery eyeshadow. It's just very chunky. You guys, this is just such a struggle. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm just like, I mean, these just feel like the cheapest quality eyeshadows ever. Like I'm really having to struggle using this, but it's just not working out for me. I don't even really want to use it anymore. They're not blending as I would like, and so the color just looks muddy instead of looking smoothly blended. Like here, there's just like color missing. I think All Star might be like the worst one in this whole palette. I don't know. Let's try Rowdy, plummy aubergine color. Let's see if maybe this one will stick in that patchy hole. Cover it up with something. Oh my God. This is just, nope. There's still that patch like right there where just nothing will stick now. I'm not into it. I'm not into it. Like look at the fallout and You know, I really did go into this with an open mind. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna make a video bashing the Subculture palette. Like, that's the new trendy thing to do, but it really is not a good palette, especially if you have owned Anastasia palettes before, like even the Modern Renaissance palette, which can be dusty. Like, look, it's now all over my hands. I have eyeshadow all over my hands. Like, how did that even get there? I don't know. After using the palette, this is what the palette looks like. There's just a lot of dust now on all the pans, especially like Cube is kind of covered now with Roxy and Dawn because I used both those colors and it kind of kicked up and transferred. So honestly, like, I wouldn't dig into it with my brush like this and be swirling it around. Like, I really just went like, you know, like that and picked it up. What use is it to have a super pigmented eyeshadow when it just doesn't blend or it just doesn't stick? So I now have two eyes that neither of which I'm satisfied with at all. I think both of them just look horrendous. So I just quickly finished up the look. I was gonna do like liner and lashes and all that, and honestly I was like, what's the point? I really don't like this makeup look that I did. I don't like either eye makeup look. Now, to just kind of qualify my review, I own and love a lot of the Anastasia Beverly Hills products, especially her eyeshadows. This entire palette, this is a Z palette or Z palette. These are all Anastasia Beverly Hills single eyeshadows. I source this palette a lot. There's so many great shades in here. They are nowhere near as dusty as her palettes. Like, if I'm dipping in, look, there's no dust kicking up, like nothing. Like, and they're so pigmented. Her single eyeshadows behave so differently than her palette eyeshadows. This up here is Makeup Geek, but these ones on the lower half, these are all Anastasia Beverly Hills shadows. I love them. I also have the Resi palette, which I use still a lot. Love this palette, great quality. Again, not nearly as dusty. I also have the Modern Renaissance here. This one, I love it as well. It's great, it's beautiful. It is very dusty, but at least I don't have any of these blending issues that I did with the Subculture. So I'm not like a hater or something of Anastasia Beverly Hills. I actually love the brand and I think they make great eyeshadows, which is why I find this palette extremely disappointing, is because it just does not live up to all those previous things that I just showed you. It's just disappointing that this one is so different. And when you actually look at the ingredients list on the back, so this is the ingredients list of Subculture and then the ingredients list of Modern Renaissance, there's obviously, you know, some changes that have been made. Some people said that this one, the first ingredient in most of the shadows on this one is talc. One of the first ingredients in this one is mica. Now, both of those are ingredients used to make eyeshadows, but I don't claim to know anything about making eyeshadows in a laboratory, so I really don't know if it's down to that, you know, either using mica or talc, but I definitely noticed that the ingredients on both these palettes is very different. So obviously this is a different formula. It does not behave the same as other Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadows. Honestly, my favorite eyeshadows from Anastasia Beverly Hills are still her single shadows. The Resi one is not as dusty either, so I don't know if her shadows have just gotten dustier over time. This costs $42, and for $42, you should not be having so many issues with a palette. This kind of reminds me of one of those like cheap made in China. You guys remember those like palettes that I used at the very beginning when I started doing YouTube? I bought those really inexpensive made in China palettes that cost like $15 on eBay. So that's kind of what this honestly reminds me of in quality, and that's why I decluttered all those eBay palettes that I used when I started. I mean, those were great palettes for me to get started, and they were very, very inexpensive, but this is not inexpensive. This is $42. Just look at this absolute mess now. Like, look at how messy this palette is. There's dust all over the mirror. You can see it there. There's dust all over the mirror. There's dust all over. Like, I'm gonna have to take a Kleenex and wipe this all down, and plus I have eyeshadow somehow all over my fingers. I don't even know how that got on my fingers. Something is just not right with this palette. It's just not the same quality, and it's not worthy of bearing the name Anastasia Beverly Hills. Like, I'm so surprised this actually went to market. This is, I think, a major letdown for the brand, and it's going to negatively affect the brand long term, I think, because people will be wary of buying their eyeshadow palettes now because this is such a dud. I'm sorry, there's no other way to like sugarcoat this. This palette is not worth your money. I would wait for the next one or just buy something else or buy her singles. Honestly, her single eyeshadows are beautiful. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please remember, hit that like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and also hit the notification bell, that bell icon right beside the subscribe button, because that way YouTube will actually inform you every single time that I upload a new video. It's become super important. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye.